here are some paper straws, and in Blackheath I have a youth cafe that we get together with young people and meet once a week, and we talked about what are some of the things that are really important that we can do for the environment. And one of them, after seeing lots of photos of turtles with plastic straws up their nostrils, was, is there a way that we can tackle plastic straws? Because plastic is clearly an environmental problem. Plastic doesn't break down. It breaks down into smaller particles. It photodegrades, but it doesn't biodegrade. So the particles will be there for many, many, many years. And it's, I think most of you would be aware of what a problem it is. So we decided with the young people that we wanted to see if we could do something about it. So then with the young people, we approached some of the businesses, and then I went and spoke to more businesses. And we became the first town in the world where every business agreed to phase out plastic straws. Now, for me, straws are a bit of a symbol because I'm old enough to remember life before plastic straws. My children, however, didn't believe it was possible to drink a drink without a lid and a plastic straw. They thought that you couldn't hold the cup wouldn't stay solid, and that the drink would go everywhere, and that it was impossible to do. And my children are intelligent. They just turned, I think they're, my opinion is that they're intelligent, but they turned 17 today. They're twins. But they honestly believed that you couldn't do that. And so that really shocked me, having grown up pre-plastic straws and pre-lids on cups. And so I thought it was a really important thing to start to tackle. And to the business's credit, everyone agreed to come on board. But it wasn't simple. I had to run a range of campaigns. One was just to encourage people to see if they could drink without a straw altogether, and say, actually have the courage to try a drink without a straw. See if you can do it. And then with the businesses, they were very concerned, and quite understandably, with replacing plastic straws with an alternative, which was paper straws, because these are so much more expensive. They're really, really expensive. And you can buy a huge box of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of plastic straws for almost nothing. And for a business, especially in a tourist destination like Blackheath is, you go through lots and lots of straws. We worked out that we're going through something like 40,000 plastic straws a month in Blackheath, which is a lot of straws, and we had to really think, well, can people afford to do the shift? So what I did was I used the buying power, the collaborative buying power of all the businesses to go to a paper straw manufacturer and say, will you give me a discount on paper straws to make them more accessible if I mention you and promote that the whole town has done it? And they were great, and they said yes. They gave me a discount. They were still expensive, but they gave me a discount. But then we went to the actual producer in America that supplied the Australian company, and they agreed after the first batch to give us a huge sponsorship deal and give us a lot of straws, which made it very, very accessible so that we could become the first town genuinely. I had to say to all the businesses, no one would agree to just banning them. So, and for good reason, a lot of people had these thousands of plastic straws that they'd bought cheaply, and we didn't want to throw them out, because the campaign we're working on is to try and get people away from single-use plastic. So plastic that you use once and throw out. We're not against plastic in every part of life. I mean, we use plastics in these chairs, everywhere we have plastic, but we were against single-use plastic, where you use it once and throw it out. And so what we were trying to get everyone to understand was that you've got to, try and find ways to avoid the single-use plastic. And so we basically said to them, we don't want it, single-use plastic is bad, but no-use plastic is even worse. If you throw the plastic straws out, that's no-use plastic. So use up your straws, however long it takes. We're going to educate the community to try and avoid using straws. So you may never need to purchase paper straws, because if you've got 1,000 plastic straws there and people aren't using them, those plastic straws might last you a very long time. And so they were willing to come on board with that. So that was a good compromise. And then we bought these in boxes like that we were able to provide very cheaply to the town. And then I even had the supermarket contacted me and asked, they said, can you give us straws to sell in the supermarket? So then I went and had to buy degradable packaging and make little packets to sell in the supermarket so that they would have them as well. And just as a little really interesting tidbit, this cardboard was actually the rejected Youth Arts and Skills Festival posters from 20 or more years ago when I worked at Arts Out West here. And because I don't throw anything out and I always want to reuse things, I had this pile of leftover posters from Arts Out West and I cut them up to make the label. So every part of this is biodegradable and recycled or recycled. So these are now for sale in the supermarket. Now what we did as a result, we now have other people who've started a boomerang bags organisation in Blackheath because they were so inspired by the success of the straws that they have started. Have you all heard of boomerang bags? No? So boomerang bags is a movement where people sew shopping bags and then hang them in the shop, like make a stand in the local shops so that if you've forgotten to bring your own bag when you go shopping, you can borrow a bag and take it instead of using plastic bags. And then the idea is they're called boomerangs, so you bring it back next time you come in. And so we're very close to launching boomerang bags in Blackheath. And so that initiative got going. The next thing we're going to do is run a topless in Blackheath weekend where... No, we're thinking of winter because it would be even more controversial. But the idea is to go to all the cafes and ask them to dare to sell their coffees without a plastic lid. So we're going without the top. So we're going to use it as a bit of a fun campaign for the kids that they're all going topless.
But the top's recyclable, it's the cup.
Not all the tops are recyclable because they're plastic. So they're recyclable but not biodegradable. And the problem with a lot of these things is they don't get recycled. Even though they're recyclable, they don't get recycled. And it's a particular problem with plastic straws because every bit of plastic is recyclable. But with plastic straws in particular, when you have garbage trucks and things, they fall out because they're little and they're long and thin. And then they get into the stormwater system and then they get into the waterways. And then the waterways, they eventually get into the oceans, even if they're broken down. And so they're entering the environment in various ways all the time. And so while recyclable is good, it's better to avoid them altogether and to actually learn that we don't need them. The reason we are pushing the paper straws to a certain degree is that some people with disability or for whatever reason do need a straw. And so we want to make sure straws are still available. And some drinks are designed to have a straw. And so you don't want to, there are cafes and restaurants now who've changed their menus so they don't need straws. But for those, we don't want to push our local businesses too hard. We just want to make it a little bit easy for them to get started on this. So we've provided that alternative. The next step we did was, so I started a not-for-profit organisation called the Big Fix Inc. It's a not-for-profit incorporated association, and our goal is to try and fix the damaged parts of our system. And we believe that a lot of that is to do with media, because what we now have in the world is a big top-down corporate for-profit media service that research I did shows that it's increasing people's fear and anxiety because of the stories that are being constantly told in the media. And so many people I talk to say they just won't listen to the news anymore. They're sick of it because of the news that comes across. And so I've done a lot of work in climate change activism and various other environmental activities, and I teach permaculture, and I was really aware of how much media influences people, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try and tackle this. So what can we do? So we decided to start a solutions media service where we focus on solutions, and our mission is to change the story from the negativity, the sort of one-sided negativity that builds fear and anxiety, to a story where you still look at the problems of the world and the issues that need to be addressed, but you also say, well, what can we do about it? Or who's done something about it? Or have other people solve this problem? What can we do to move on from that? And so it's basically presenting the problems of the world in a solutions framework that tries to go a little bit beyond what mainstream media does, and also that balances the media, because my observation working in local communities is that there are thousands of people around the world doing really good things to help their communities, to fix problems. You know, they do swamp care, bush care, they go and help elderly people as social support. People are doing things everywhere you look in your community, but that's not in the mainstream media. All we hear about is how many people are murdering, stealing, killing, how many terrorists there are. We do hear some stories, but not many. And I know this because I've been searching through the media every day for the last few years, and every day I post 7 solution stories from around the world. And it takes me a minimum of 4 hours a day to find 7. So there aren't many in our media compared to all the other stories. So I know that from scouring international media every day for the last few years. So that doesn't represent how many people are working really hard to solve the problems of the world. So every day I post 7 solution stories. I've opened up a Facebook group where all of you can share any good stories that you know of what people are doing. So everyone can share those stories. And we also started a magazine. So after we did the straws, we thought we've got to let people know about this. So many people are working really, really hard, but they don't know how to share their stories with the world because they're so busy doing what they do. And you've got all these people working hard. You've got all these writers and artists who are underemployed or unemployed. So I went to our local council and they gave us a grant to employ local writers and artists to produce our first edition of The Big Fix. And our lead story was how Blackheath said no to plastic straws and was phasing out plastic straws. And so we then focused on lots of other solutions happening in our community. And one of the problems as well was that our neighbourhood centre was losing funding and they weren't able, because of various programs that had been axed. And so they were going to have to axe their local newsletter. So we went in partnership with them. So half the magazine was the neighbourhood centre newsletter, half is our solutions media. So our mission is to change the story to grow a collaborative, solutions-focused culture. And so this was an example of how we were working collaboratively and how we were focusing on solutions. We've produced 2 editions in Blackheath, and what I've put on all your chairs is our first regional edition. So we looked at Blue Mountains, Lithgow, Hawkesbury and Penrith and how they're very much linked in a bioregion because that's 4 councils with 4 very important rivers. And those rivers flow through those local government areas. So we weren't growing a region because of any political reason or whatever, simply because these 4 councils have the responsibility for 4 important rivers. And so that's how we determined this regional edition. And we're now distributing 10,000 copies of these throughout the region, as well as our online service. So what we're trying to do is encourage more and more people to share solution stories, to occupy the media with stories about solutions so that we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. It's very exciting that people are doing incredible things that no one knows about. And if you get an idea and then you know other people who've done it, you can say, well, they did it this way, this failed, this succeeded, what can we learn from that, how can we move on? And so that is really what's behind this. We grow local alliances, we do the work first, like doing the straws And we have a Blackheath Alliance, which represents nearly all the groups in Blackheath, where we meet regularly. People were so excited by the magazine that we got a whole team of volunteers who now deliver 4,000 something magazines to every household from Medlow, Bath to Mount Vic and round to Mount Tomar, which is really fantastic. And so the community loves it and they're really involved. And I'm hoping that down the track, as we grow a taste for this, as part of our reaction to what I think is not a very good media environment in the world, that we can get lots of small communities setting up their own solutions media service and feeding into the network so that everyone can share them. A bit like setting up Rotary groups or arts councils, that type of approach. So that's what I'm working towards, and who knows, maybe Bathurst would like to do one in the future. So there's all sorts of possibilities, and we're certainly able to help people do it. So it's about employing local people and not having money go up out of a community but come down into a community so that more people get employed and more people get inspired and enthused to tackle problems like getting rid of straws, getting rid of plastic bags. We've got a lovely story in here about ending homelessness. There are so many issues that we need to deal with, and if we work collaboratively and we believe we can do it, then we can start. Naomi Klein said, the biggest danger we're facing is that people believe we're already screwed and that we can't do anything about it. And she said that is our biggest challenge. So for me, I want to make sure that the people who are really passionate and who have done a lot of work in the past continue to feel passionate and continue to keep working, because there is so much that we can do, and the big fix is the system. We need to work on this system that is filling us with despair and lack of hope. And the reality is, like I can honestly say to you, because I do this every single day and post my Solutions Digest, that there is far more happening than any of you would even remotely begin to believe, and it's terribly exciting. And change is happening far more quickly than you realise. And I spent a year crying when I found out when I really fully got a grip on what climate change was doing and how much damage we were doing to the world. I had 5-year-old twin boys, and it was a big shock to my system because my history had always been about arts and, you know, it's a very beautiful life, but I hadn't really tackled environment. And when I really did start to do that with 5-year-old twin boys, I just cried for a year. I was so depressed. And then I did climate presentations, over 100 climate presentations, and then I sort of moved into solutions, and it's transformed my life. I know that the problems are there, that they're bad, but I also know that humanity is extraordinary. And in 2006, an article was written about the 12 global warming tipping points, that if we go past those tipping points, we're going to go into catastrophic climate change that can't be reversed. But the woman who wrote that article said, there is a 13th tipping point, and it's the human tipping point. And the human tipping point can happen just as fast as any of the climate change tipping points. And 2 years ago, I went to an international conference of sustainable development researchers, and they called that conference Tipping Point. And for people who are normally very negative, they said they actually believe the tipping point had started, the human tipping point had started. So I am deeply confident that the human tipping point has started, but I also know that everyone in every sector has to get on board, because we're at that tipping point, and it could go either way. And that's why it's really important that the people that have worked hard until now and the young people keen to do something about the future don't give up, because we are at that point now. And it's scary and exhilarating, and whatever happens, we need to live knowing that we must act and we can act. And it's a little bit like life. We all know we're going to die, but we keep living right until the last minute. You can either live dyingly or you can die livingly. And I believe we need to die livingly right until everyone's last minute. We will all die. We all face extinction, but we need to live until that very moment when we can't live anymore. And it's not our job to bring death on earlier. It's our job to live. And it's our job to believe that we can restore and fix this beautiful planet that we live on. So be part of this exciting tipping point. Thank you.